All right, very fitting that I'm wearing my Farscape shirt for this review because Bugonia is a unique and special kind of movie. If the most important thing to you these days is to just see something different in the theater that breaks formula in plot, character, and theme, and that has considerable geek appeal, I can't in any way guarantee you'll appreciate Bugonia, but I would highly recommend looking into it and considering watching it for yourself. But just don't look into it too much. You don't want this one spoiled for you. I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. The IMDb synopsis for Bugonia is probably supposed to be Bugonia. Anyway, Bugonia reads, two conspiracy-obsessed young men kidnap the high-powered CEO of a major company, convinced that she is an alien intent on destroying planet Earth. Okay, so this is an unusual but not unheard of type of story where characters believe something wild about the world and you don't know until the end if what they believe is real or not. Are they insane, or are they the only ones that understand this other reality that no one else sees? And that means that movies like these can't be easily categorized without spoiling them. If they are delusional, then it's a drama or a comedy. If they are sane, then it's a sci-fi or supernatural or whatever the main concept is. So when reviewing these kinds of movies, I try to just describe them as having geek appeal. In this case, whether the main two guys are sane or delusional, sci-fi concepts are in dialogue and in the premise all over this movie. And on that level alone, I think geeks will be able to connect with this. The main tension I felt watching the movie from the drama was wrestling back and forth with the increasingly intense situations because I didn't know if these guys were sane or not. If they're insane, they're doing terrible things to this woman. If they are not insane, she is doing a bafflingly convincing performance as a human and has done terrible things to them and humanity. Who should I feel bad for? Who should I be rooting and hoping for? I don't know, and I loved the complexity of that. It's a very character-driven story. The more you learn about the two men as individuals and about the CEO that they kidnapped, the more you see what drives them, what makes them relatable and likable, or at other times disturbing or disgusting. These characters are complex, and so were my feelings about them, as I think was the intent. And eventually I realized that no matter what the truth was, 2 out of 3 of these main characters are neither black hats nor white hats. They are tragic and pitiable and also infuriating in their single-minded selfishness. And I think that's part of what we're supposed to be left with at the end when the dust settles and we know what's what. Now, some people may laugh. I did one time in the movie, just a mild chuckle. Others in my theater multiple times in the last 15 minutes as the situation becomes increasingly wild and extreme. But most of the movie, I think it's a quirky drama to me, with darkness that prevents too much laughing. This movie does go to some very dark and disturbing places, both that at times have tense buildup leading to that moment and also shocking turns. So it's like the way that it kind of connects with you dramatically, they change up their technique. It can't simply be categorized as drama, comedy, or suspense. It takes turns being all of these. And sometimes in the moment, I wasn't even sure which one I was intended to feel. And again, I love that. It's a movie that does the unconventional and challenges me to engage and decide what I think about what I'm seeing, how I feel about what I'm seeing. It's not weird and artsy in the sense that you don't know what's going on. By the end, it's like you know what's what. It's a story that is easy to follow. It just goes down a very unique path. And I say this as someone that enjoys a lot of has enjoyed a lot of indie sci-fi that does unusual things. This feels like, in some ways, like it's got some movie stars in it, but it's still doing some indie type unconventional stuff. Anyway, as far as the cast goes, Emma Stone, she would be the big name that most people would recognize, and I think she's perfectly cast as a female CEO who I believe had to crawl and kill her way to get to the top. She is strong and she's capable, but she is hardly admirable. She is hardened and manipulative, but I also felt bad for what was being done to her as Emma Stone portrayed vulnerability in some of those moments. And man, I loved Jesse Plemons, who is kind of like of the two conspiracy guys. He's the one that's kind of running the show. You might recognize Plemons from numerous supporting character roles in other movies. He's definitely lost some weight compared to the last couple roles I've seen him in. He's often in these small one-scene roles in movies where he plays kind of an interesting, unusual character. But he gets really leading man status here and was as nuanced and engaging as I thought and hoped he would be. I was totally absorbed in his performance. Aidan Delbus is a newcomer. He plays a young adult on the autism spectrum, and Delbus himself, I learned looking at IMDb, has autism, which makes sense of his spot-on characterization. He played the single, pure, and likable character in this story, and I loved the heart that he added to the movie. As far as stunts and visuals, this is not a visual effects movie, not really a stunt movie. Well, there's definitely some stunts, and so I did wonder a couple times, are those stunt actors or whatever, but it's all very practical. There are a few visual effects sequences that were meant to wonder, okay, is this real or is this just in a character's head? Anytime visual effects were relevant in what I was seeing, I thought they did a great job of being effective, but not overly ambitious. So it's not a visual effects movie. I don't often talk about the music, but this time I should mention, because something stood out. The music has this repeating cue that comes back. It's in and out of the movie that involves a big orchestra, almost felt in some ways like epic sci-fi drama stuff. It was so intense that I wondered, am I supposed to find this funny? Am I supposed to find this intense? It really contributed to those kinds of moments where I was weirdly off balance and not knowing where the movie was going or what I was supposed to be thinking about this moment right now. So really kudos to the music choices being made in the score. Okay, as far as themes, is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance in the themes of this thing that could contribute to some worthwhile thought or conversation? Well, it plays with political talking points, but it wonderfully muddies the waters. It's not politically charged throughout, but I mean, it's got these moments where it's like, they're referencing these kinds of things. We've got these two conspiracy theory. I mean, I think they are supposed to represent, in some ways, what is sometimes referred to as an incel, an involuntary celibate. They're just kind of like in their own world. They're socially cut off. And they are not happy with their lives, and they're very frustrated, and it's leading them to do, some questionable, or in this case, some really intense things. And so they seem mentally unbalanced or otherwise warped, and I think that is kind of like supposed to be the stereotypical concept of a quote-unquote incel, but they are also likable and wounded and tragic characters that I don't think we can really hate. I couldn't. We've also got a CEO who probably thinks of herself as an awesome girl boss, a poster child for left-leaning messaging, but she has a disgusting, self-absorbed, arguably sociopathic personality, and clearly only cares, quote-unquote, about DEI in a soulless, performative way. It's clearly playing with some slogans and talking points of current political ideological debate. But neither end of the political spectrum is portrayed as like the good one, the one that we should support, or the bad one, the one that we should get rid of at all costs. In fact, the final sentiment I think we're supposed to be left with is that everyone, humanity in general, is inconsistent, disingenuous, and destroying our planet, each other, and ourselves. We are a mess as a species, Yesterday, while I was recording another part of the CGC podcast that this review will drop into as well, I said that we've got a lot of fiction propping up the left or the right ends of the political spectrum as like the bad that has to be overcome. Usually it's some kind of a right-leaning perspective that's bad and has to be overcome. But I said at the same time that really I think we need a lot more fiction that faces the fact that it's the human heart that needs fixing and that must be overcome. Our problems are much deeper than the evils in our politics in which they come to the surface. But the root of those issues is the human heart, the human condition. Bugonia, or Bugonia, almost nihilistically suggests that we are all messed up and are on the road to destruction. And there's some significant biblical overlap in that kind of idea. No idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Vader. All right, yeah. See it in the theater or don't. Either way, you're going to want to add this to your collection for sure, both to watch again and so that you can sort through the story in light of knowing where the dust settles at the end, and to show to other people in your life who can handle being stretched by something outside of the norm, which Bugonia definitely is. This one's rated R for bloody, violent content, including a suicide, grisly images, and language. And those are all of my thoughts for now on Let's Go with Bugonia. As always, love getting your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell to stay connected. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders once again for making this review possible. You can get info about the benefits of joining at patreon.com/Spiritblade Productions. Then I hope you'll check out our podcast and stay connected to all CGC content at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. For more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery, get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services.